You did not find this video. This video found you, and that should disturb you, because most of your life has been nothing but a chain of accidents, scrolling, clicking, consuming, wasting hours you will never get back. But this moment, this is not an accident. If these words are reaching you, it means you have already started to crack. Something inside you knows the life you're living is not real. You smile when you don't want to. You laugh when you feel hollow. You wake up tired, and you go to bed even more exhausted. Every day you play a role you never auditioned for, slave, servant, puppet, just to keep the illusion intact. You call it normal, you call it safe, but in truth, you have been sleepwalking. Your comfort has drugged you, your routines have blinded you, and every small compromise you make, every time you swallow your anger, every time you betray your own thoughts, every time you kneel before someone else's approval, you trade away another piece of your soul. That's why this video found you. To tell you the truth you've been running from. You are not awake, not yet. You are trapped in a dream carefully designed for you by your parents, your teachers, your politicians, and the invisible hand of society that whispers, stay quiet, fit in, do as you're told. They trained you to obey. They taught you to fear standing apart. And they convinced you that being asleep was the same thing as being alive. But you can feel it, can't you? The unease, the quiet desperation, the dull panic that grows stronger each year. You know there's something wrong. You've always known. And here's the forbidden truth. Most people never wake up. They will keep scrolling, keep obeying, keep lying to themselves until they rot in the ground. Their lives will be forgotten. Their names will be erased. They will die as nobodies, faithful servants of a system that never cared for them. But you are not most people. If you were, you wouldn't still be here. You wouldn't be listening to this voice, feeling your stomach tighten and your skin crawl as the mask you wear starts to slip. No, this is different. This is your initiation. This is the moment when the illusion collapses, when you stop believing the lies they fed you and start asking the questions you were never supposed to ask. Who am I really? Why do I feel so empty? What if everything I was taught about life, success, and happiness was designed to keep me asleep? This is your wake-up call, and it will not be gentle, because awakening is violent. It tears apart the false self you've clung to. It burns down the prison of comfort you built. It rips the chains from your hands, not with kindness, but with fire. You will lose friends. You will face enemies. You will terrify people who can't understand why you suddenly see through their games. But that is the price of truth. And if you're still watching, if you can feel that something in you is stirring, then you're ready to pay it. The old life is dying. The new one is beginning. Welcome to the moment you wake up. You've been told your whole life that you are free. Free to choose, free to think, free to live however you want. But that was the first lie. The truth is harsher. You were born into a system that shaped you long before you ever had the chance to question it. From the moment you could speak, you were handed a mask called normal. Carl Jung called it the persona, the version of yourself you wear for the world, smiling when you don't feel like it, agreeing when every bone in your body wants to resist, bending, shrinking, folding yourself into a shape that earns approval, applause, and permission to exist. You thought this was your identity. You thought this was who you are, but it isn't. It's a performance, a costume you've been wearing for so long that you've forgotten the face beneath it. And here's the part that burns. You accepted it. You played the role. You obeyed. You told yourself you were awake because you were scrolling through ideas, watching videos, dabbling in philosophy, posting your opinions online, but that wasn't awakening. That was distraction. That was the herd dressed in modern clothing. Nietzsche saw this more than a century ago. He called it herd morality, the way human beings crush their individuality and follow the crowd because it feels safer to be one sheep among many than to risk becoming a lone wolf. The herd always chooses comfort over danger, obedience over freedom, illusion over truth. And you, without realizing it, became part of that herd. Think about it. How many of your thoughts are truly your own? The way you dress, the way you talk, the career you chase, the opinions you repeat, are they really yours? Or are they echoes of what you've been fed by teachers, by peers, by influencers, by algorithms that know you better than you know yourself? Look around at the digital world you live in. Millions of people screaming the same slogans, repeating the same mantras, wearing the same masks. Everyone desperate to look unique, but all copying the same templates. You scroll past endless profiles, each shouting, "I am different, I am free." But in truth, they are identical, trapped in the same performance of being seen. And you thought you were awake because you noticed the game. But noticing isn't enough. Seeing the prison walls doesn't make you free. Here's the forbidden truth. You are still asleep. And worse, you've been comfortable with it. Because sleep is warm, sleep is safe. Sleep means you don't have to confront the shadow that hides in you. The rage, the ambition, the selfishness, the dangerous power you buried just to keep your mask intact. That's why you keep your head down at work. That's why you laugh at jokes you don't find funny. That's why you pretend to be smaller, quieter, weaker than you are. Because the persona keeps you acceptable, and the herd keeps you safe. But tell me, has it made you alive? Number. It has made you numb. It has made you obedient. It has made you invisible. Every time you bite your tongue, instead of speaking truth, you sink deeper into sleep. Every time you silence your hunger, your anger, your wildness, you bury the real you one layer deeper in the dirt. That is the lie you've been living. That survival is the same thing as life. That wearing a mask is the same thing as being a man. That being accepted is the same thing as being free. It isn't. You are not free. Not yet. The system does not want you awake. Your friends do not want you awake. Even your family may resist it, because if you wake up, you break the spell. And if you break the spell, you stop playing the role they need you to play. The herd will hate you for it. The system will punish you for it. The persona will try to drag you back into its skin. But if you're still here, if your chest is tight and your pulse is rising, it means part of you already knows. The mask doesn't fit anymore. You're angry because you feel it slipping. You're ashamed because you've been wearing it for so long. And you're terrified because you know what happens next. Waking up means the death of the lie. It means the death of the person you pretended to be. And that death begins now. There comes a moment when the mask begins to crack. You can hide it for years. The fake smile, the forced laughter, the obedience. But eventually, something inside you snaps. And when it does, your first instinct will be to panic. To think you are failing, to believe you are collapsing. But collapse is not the end. Collapse is the threshold. Carl Jung called this breaking point the beginning of individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, not who the world trained you to be. And Arthur Schopenhauer saw it even darker. Suffering, he said, is not an accident of life, but its core. Pain is the crucible. Pain is the test. Pain is the only force strong enough to strip away illusion and reveal what remains. Think about the patterns of history. Ancient tribes sent their young into the wilderness for initiation. Alone, starving, hunted, terrified. If they returned, they were no longer boys. They had died and been reborn as men. The collapse of comfort was not failure, it was the ritual doorway to power. And today, the world has softened the ritual, but kept the truth. You will face your collapse in the silent moments when the life you built suddenly feels empty. In the nights when you stare at the ceiling, heart racing, knowing you cannot keep living the way you have. In the betrayal that shatters your trust. In the breakup that leaves you gutted. In the job loss that strips away your identity. You call it disaster. You call it ruin. But in reality, these moments are your initiation. Collapse is the signal. Collapse means your false self is finally dying. But here is where most men fail. Instead of walking through the threshold, they crawl back. They numb themselves with distractions. They drown themselves in noise. They scramble to rebuild the same prison walls that were just torn down. And then they wonder why life keeps breaking them again and again. You must not make that mistake. When your life begins to crack, do not run. Do not patch the mask. Do not rebuild the illusion. Stand in the wreckage. Because it is in that wreckage that the real self begins to breathe. Jung taught that individuation only begins when the old patterns collapse. Schopenhauer warned that suffering is the unavoidable price of consciousness. And Nietzsche demanded that we embrace this collapse, declaring, "You must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star." This is the universal law. You cannot awaken without breaking first. The threshold of collapse is not the end of your story. It is the page where your story truly begins. So, If you are standing there now, if your life feels like it is shattering, if your chest is tight with panic, if you are on the edge of despair, understand this. You are not being destroyed. You are being remade. And what comes after this collapse will terrify the herd, because they will never understand it. They will see you fall apart, but they will not see the fire that is being lit inside you. They will call it weakness, when in truth, it is initiation. Most people never reach this threshold, and those who do usually run back. But if you walk forward, if you endure the collapse, you will step into a life the herd cannot even imagine. The mask is crumbling, the walls are breaking, and that is good. Because the moment you collapse is the moment you wake up. Every man carries a darkness. You have felt it. The anger you swallow, the desires you hide, the thoughts you never dare to speak. That is your shadow. Carl Jung described it as everything you repress: the rage, the lust, the fear, the envy, the hunger for power, the impulse to dominate, to rebel, to destroy. You bury it because society tells you it is unacceptable. You hide it because you fear what others will say. You pretend it isn't there because you want to believe you are clean. But the shadow doesn't disappear. It waits. It festers. And the longer you ignore it, the more it controls you from the dark. This is why most men never awaken, because they cannot face the shadow. They run from it. They drown it with distractions. They pray it will stay buried. But what is buried alive never stays dead. The shadow leaks out in subtle ways. The quiet resentment that poisons your relationships, the self-hatred that sabotages your success, the outbursts of rage that erupt when you least expect them. You think you are controlling it, but in truth, it is controlling you. To wake up, you must turn and face it. And this is terrifying, because to look into the shadow is to see the parts of yourself you swore you didn't have. The cruelty, the cowardice, the jealousy, the hunger for control, the selfishness that lurks beneath your fake kindness. But here is the forbidden truth. Until you embrace this darkness, you will never be whole. Nietzsche warned, one must have chaos within to give birth to a dancing star. The chaos is your shadow. It is the wildness that makes creation possible, the raw energy that can either consume you or transform you. History remembers those who confronted their demons and became untouchable because of it. Think of Jung himself, who spent nights descending into what he called his confrontation with the unconscious. He wrote of visions that nearly broke his mind, images of blood, fire, serpents, and gods. But he endured. He mapped the terrain of his own madness and came back stronger with insights that shaped modern psychology. Or think of the warrior philosophers of old, men who faced their fear of death head-on. The Spartans trained not to eliminate fear, but to master it, to wield it as fuel in battle. They didn't deny the shadow. They sharpened it into a weapon. The man who has faced his shadow becomes dangerous, not because he is violent, but because he cannot be manipulated. You cannot shame him with his darkness. You cannot control him with fear. He has already walked into the cave and shaken hands with the monster inside. Most people remain slaves to their hidden impulses. They live as fragile masks, easily read, easily broken. But the awakened man carries both mask and shadow consciously. He wears the persona when he chooses. He unleashes the shadow when he must, and this makes him unreadable, unpredictable, untouchable. This is why society fears the man who has confronted himself, because he cannot be controlled. He is not at war with himself. His darkness does not leak out in cowardly bursts. It is contained, mastered, and ready. You must decide whether you will remain a prisoner of the shadow or whether you will face it and become sovereign. Do not mistake this for an easy path. The shadow will resist you. It will whisper that you are not ready. It will show you images that disgust you. It will drag you through guilt, shame, and fear. You will feel as though you are falling apart. But this is the necessary fire. If you can endure it, if you can stand before the shadow without turning away, you will emerge as something the herd can never understand. A man who has embraced his shadow is not harmless. He is whole, and wholeness is power. When you confront the shadow, you stop living as half a person. You stop fighting against yourself. You stop fearing the parts of you that are dangerous, and instead learn to use them with precision. This is the step most refuse. But if you walk through it, you will become unreadable. You will become untouchable. and the world will never see you the same way again. Most men will go to their graves clutching their masks. They will die pretending, smiling in photographs, nodding in meetings, laughing at jokes they don't find funny. They will leave this world without ever having lived in it, and that is the tragedy. Not that they failed, not that they suffered, but that they never truly existed. To awaken, the old self must die. You cannot carry your illusions into freedom. You cannot keep your chains and expect to walk unbound. You cannot wear the mask and see clearly at the same time. The death of the false self is not optional. It is the price of waking up. But here is the brutal truth. Most men refuse to pay it. They cling to the comfort of their illusions until their last breath. They convince themselves the mask is who they are. They call their obedience virtue. They call their fear humility. They call their submission love. And the herd applauds because the herd only feels safe when you are small. This is why true awakening has always been marked by death. Ancient tribes understood this. When a boy came of age, he was stripped of his identity, sent into the wilderness alone, forced to die symbolically before returning as something new. The death of the child was the birth of the man. Mystics understood this. In every tradition, the seeker must endure the dark night of the soul, the annihilation of the ego, to lose everything you thought you were and emerge reborn as something unshakable. Even the Stoics embraced this death. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that he was already a corpse in waiting. To see life through the eyes of the dead was to live awake, to cast aside the false attachments that keep men blind. Your death will not come with fire or wilderness. It will come in silence. The night you stop playing the role, the moment you stop pretending, the day you allow the old self to fall apart and burn. It is not a gentle death. It is violent, humiliating, terrifying. Because the persona fights to survive. The mask will scream that you cannot live without it. The herd will panic when they see you breaking free. Friends will call you strange. Family will call you selfish. Strangers will call you dangerous. And they are right. You will be dangerous, not because you wish them harm, but because you will no longer belong to their illusion. When the mask burns, people recoil. They see in you what they've been running from in themselves. Your clarity terrifies them because it exposes their sleep. That is the sign you are waking up. Understand this. You are not here to make others comfortable. You are not here to die as a loyal servant of a lie. You are here to shed the skin of your old self, even if it hurts, even if it burns, even if the herd howls in fear. Most men will stay asleep. Most men will die small. But if you are still listening, if your chest tightens at these words, then you already know. You cannot go back. Your old self is already dying. Let it. Stand in the fire and watch the illusion burn. Watch the weak self crumble. Watch the false identity dissolve. This is not destruction. This is birth. The death of the old self is the only way the new self can breathe. And the moment you allow that death, you step into a life most men will never touch. Now that the mask has burned, the question rises. What comes next? Most men will never know. They will remain asleep, content with the illusion. They will cling to their routines, their distractions, their empty victories. They will keep playing the role of servant, never daring to step beyond it. But you are not most men. If you've come this far, you already feel the separation. You've noticed how conversations sound hollow, how the jokes don't land, how the noise of the crowd no longer pulls you in the way it once did. This is the first mark of the awakened, the sense that you no longer belong to the herd. And that is good, because the path of the awakened is not crowded. It never has been. So, what does this path look like? It is not a list of habits or hacks. It is not a morning routine or a motivational checklist. It is a way of being that cuts deeper, one that most will reject because it is too heavy, too raw, too dangerous. 1. Embrace solitude. The herd fears silence. They fear being alone because it forces them to hear themselves. That is why they drown in constant noise, music, notifications, endless scrolling. But you must step into the silence willingly. Solitude is where you meet the parts of yourself that the world never let you see. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire of his age, yet every night he returned to solitude, writing not to others, but to himself. Why? Because the emperor knew that self-rule is the only true empire. 2. Resist manipulation. The world will try to drag you back. Advertisers, politicians, influencers, all of them fighting for your mind. The asleep majority obeys without question. But the awakened man studies these forces like a hunter studies prey. Machiavelli wrote that power belongs not to the naive, but to the man who sees through appearances, who recognizes manipulation and refuses to be a puppet. When you awaken, you become unreadable. You are not swayed by flattery. You are not seduced by lies. You see the strings and cut them. 3. Practice ruthless self-honesty. The asleep man lies constantly, to others, but most of all to himself. He tells himself he is happy when he is not. He tells himself he is strong when he is weak. He tells himself he is free while chained to approval. The awakened man does not lie. Jung taught that the shadow must be faced with ruthless honesty. This means admitting what you desire, what you fear, what you hate. It means no longer hiding from yourself. That honesty will feel brutal, but it is the only path to clarity. 4. Weaponize silence. Words are cheap. The herd spends them endlessly, but the awakened man learns to weaponize silence. He does not argue for validation. He does not explain himself to the unworthy. His silence unsettles the herd because it cannot be manipulated. Machiavelli warned that sometimes the most powerful move is to say nothing, letting others reveal themselves while you remain unreadable. Your silence becomes a blade, sharper than any speech. These are not rules for everyone. These are principles for the few, for the ones willing to live awake in a world that prefers sleep. And here is the paradox. The path of the awakened will make you an outcast, but it will also make you sovereign. The herd will not understand you. They will whisper. They will resent your clarity, but secretly, they will envy it. They will feel the weight of their own chains when they stand beside your freedom. This is why the awakened man is feared, not because he is violent, not because he seeks domination, but because his very presence exposes the illusions others cling to. He is a mirror they cannot look into for long, and you, if you choose this path, will carry that same aura. You will become the man who cannot be controlled, the man who cannot be read, the man who is both mask and shadow, solitude and silence, clarity and fire. Most will never touch this path, but you are here, you are listening, and that already separates you from the asleep. You are one of the few. You didn't find this video found you, and now you understand why. Everything you've seen so far, the lie you were born into, the collapse that broke you, the shadow you feared, the death of your old self, the narrow path of the awakened, it was all leading here, to this moment, to this transformation. Awakening is not motivation. It is not a slogan you tape to your wall, or a routine you copy from a guru. Awakening is violent. Awakening is dangerous. Awakening is the death of the man you were and the birth of the man you were meant to become. You are no longer asleep. You are no longer obedient. You are no longer just another face in the herd. You are awake, and that makes you untouchable. Most people cannot handle this shift. They want the comfort of sleep. They want to keep their mask intact. They want to collapse and call it bad luck. They want to bury their shadow and pretend it doesn't exist. They want to die small and safe, applauded by other sleepers. But not you. You walked through the collapse. You confronted the shadow. You let the false self burn. You chose solitude when the herd screamed for noise. You chose silence when the world demanded explanations. You chose the hard path that only the rare few ever touch. And now, you are different. When you enter a room, you carry the weight of someone who has seen himself without illusion. Your presence unsettles the asleep, because you remind them of what they've avoided. You don't need to speak loudly. You don't need to beg for attention. Your silence alone exposes their weakness. You are no longer at war with yourself. You do not fear your darkness because you have mastered it. You do not crave their approval because you've tasted freedom. You do not beg for belonging because you belong to yourself. That is sovereignty, and sovereignty is the rarest power in this world. It cannot be bought, it cannot be handed down. It can only be forged in collapse, in shadow, in fire. The man who awakens becomes unreadable because he is whole. He becomes feared because he cannot be manipulated. He becomes remembered because he does not waste his life asleep. This is why the world resists men like you, because the world depends on obedience. The system needs the herd to keep dreaming. If too many woke up, the illusion would crumble overnight. That is why the awakened man is always an outsider, always misunderstood, always called dangerous. But dangerous is exactly what you must become. Not reckless, not cruel, but sovereign. A man who cannot be owned. A man who carries his own law inside him. A man who looks the world in the eye and says, I am awake. You cannot put me back to sleep. Remember this. You didn't stumble onto this message by chance. You are here because you were ready. Ready to die to your old self. Ready to walk through the fire. Ready to face your shadow. Ready to live as one of the few who awaken. And from this moment forward, you cannot pretend again. You can't go back to the herd. You can't wear the mask with the same comfort. You can't scroll mindlessly and call it living. Because once you've seen the truth, sleep is no longer possible. You are awake now, and that is power. Not the kind of power they teach in schools. Not the kind of power politicians promise. This is the rarest kind of power. Sovereignty of the self. The power to walk alone. The power to see clearly. The power to move through life feared, respected, and remembered. You didn't find this video. This video found you because you were ready. And now, the choice is yours. Will you close your eyes again? Or will you walk into the world awake, dangerous, sovereign, untouchable? Most will close this and forget. They will go back to their scrolling, their masks, their illusions. They will bury the discomfort rising in their chest. They will stay asleep. But you are not most men. You are still here. You endured the truth. You walked through the fire of your own weakness, and you did not look away. That means something. That marks you as different. That marks you as rare. From this moment forward, you cannot pretend again. The old self is gone. The chains have cracked. The mask has burned. You are awake. And once you awaken, there is no return. This is not entertainment. This is initiation. Understand this. Awakening is not a thought, not a mood, not a rush of emotion that fades tomorrow. Awakening is a command you obey every day, in silence, in solitude, in ruthless honesty, in resistance to the world that demands your obedience. Most men will kneel, but you will stand. Most men will die invisible, but you will not be forgotten. From this moment, you carry the mark of the awakened, sovereign, untouchable, unreadable. This is your command. Do not fall back asleep. Do not betray what you have seen. Walk into the world with the fire you have found here and let it shape everything you do. And when you are ready for the next step, when you want to go deeper into the forbidden knowledge that most men will never touch, it is waiting for you. The next message, the next initiation, take it. Continue the path. Refuse to return to the herd. You are awake now. This is your command.